And welcome back to the Damn Podcast, coming to you live on YouTube and anytime on your favorite podcast streaming service. Live from Corvallis, I'm Carter Bahns, and with me, as always, is BeaverBlitz.com publisher Angie Machado. Angie, it's been a few weeks now, almost a month. I think the last time we did this, it was St. Patrick's Day.
Wait, isn't it? It's been a minute. Isn't that what all you snappers are saying now? It's been a minute.
There you go. It's been a minute, Angie. So what have you been up to the last month? It's been a while since we sat down here and talked Oregon State football, Oregon State baseball. I think the last time we talked basketball was just wrapping up. So how's the last month treated you? How was your spring break? And how are things going as we hit April 13th here?
April 13th. Holy smokes. Anyway, yes. So we kind of got busy there. I did take a spring break. We went to Palm Springs, just our family, and spent some time in the sun. I transitioned out of the boot, my walking boot. So those of you that remember, I broke my foot back in late January and spent like 9 weeks in a walking boot, and then kind of started to transition out in Palm Springs. And I'm working now toward, I feel pretty good right now. I've been doing a little physical therapy on it. And then Carter abandoned us. We let Carter take a quick trip. He had an amazing opportunity. So I was down in Corvallis the past couple of weeks covering some Beaver football practice. But Carter, my life isn't as exciting as what you've been up to. So why don't you share what you've done in the past couple of weeks?
Hey, I mean, you were in Palm Springs, which as far as domestic trips go, is pretty hard to beat. I've been there myself, and it's one of my favorites, especially this time of year when you can get out of this Oregon weather. I mean, we're here recording mid-April, and I just looked outside and there's snow on the ground in the Corvallis Hills.
Yeah, we had snow on Monday morning in Sherwood.
Yeah. So anytime you can get out and go hang out in the desert, not too bad. But I just got back about 5 days ago from my travels. Took a little spring break myself and was overseas in Greece. So my first international trip, not a bad place to go to get the ball rolling. Got my passport about a month ago and set sail end of March. So the day that you came down to watch practice as the team came back from their 2-week break was the day I landed in Athens. I spent 3 days in Athens, 4 days in Santorini, just absolutely incredible. And then 1 day back in Athens as we wrap things up. So as we record here, I'm still recovering from my jet lag a little bit. Today, I feel substantially better than the last few days. I had a full night of sleep yesterday, but that was a brutal reality to come back from a once in a lifetime vacation, 10 hours in the future, and come back here in a completely different time zone and get back into the routine of going to football practice and covering baseball.
Yeah. So we've talked briefly, but what was your favorite thing about, I've never been to Greece. So what stood out?
Well, Santorini, I think, definitely lives up to the expectations. There's a reason it's probably the most photographed, Instagrammed, destination on the planet. Staying in those cave houses, those white cave houses built into the side of the island, and looking over and seeing the sunset over the caldera, probably, I don't think that's something that'll ever be topped as far as, just pure destination value. In my lifetime, I would go back in a heartbeat. And I think, the highlight of that part of the trip for me was we took a little catamaran sailing cruise around the island. So 5 hours, we sailed around the caldera, went swimming in the hot springs, all inclusive, dinner, bottomless wine. It was awesome. So I went with a couple of friends and we had an absolute blast.
Awesome. Well, I'm heading out. So Carter did his international travel, and I will be heading out internationally here in a couple weeks. So Carter will hold things down. It is a little tough when you're 8, 9, 10 hours away. So, but I know you'll do a great job. And I'll be posting more pictures than you, Carter. Just know that.
It was weird being, overseas, and the basketball Final Four and national championship was going on, and I was really hoping I would get a chance to watch those games. I wasn't about to get up at 3 a.m. to do that. So,
and then me being as a bad person like I am, that Thursday practice, I snap, and it was beautiful in Corvallis, and I snap a picture and send it to him, send it to Carter, just like, aren't you jealous? And then, a couple of the other media members that are friends with Carter was like, don't do that. Totally mean. He's trying to check out. I was like, oh my gosh, totally sorry. So I'm sorry. You can send me all the pictures from practice you want. I'm going to Paris and Florence. So yes, you'll be seeing lots of croissants and baguette photos on my timeline.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I enjoyed the food there in Greece about as much as I think I could have anticipated. The amount of Greek salads, gyros, coffee that I had. Yeah. I might be working to work all of those calories off for a while, but.
So wait, was the coffee amazing? Because when I was in Portugal, the coffee was like the most amazing concoction I'd ever tried.
Yeah.
Just as good in Greece.
In the US, we like to think that we do coffee right.
Mm-mm.
We just don't. The espresso there, it's either, you either get espressos or cappuccinos. There's really nothing else in Greece. And so you just get you get that rich, like chocolatey coffee flavor. Whereas here it's like everything's watered down and we add sugar and, caramel and all these things. Everything over there is pure and like fresh. And yeah, it was unreal.
In Portugal, I would order every morning, go and order 2 Americanos, which they were still pretty small. And I would enjoy that. Oh, best thing in the world. But we're here to talk Beaver football, Beaver sports.
Yes.
What are you drinking, by the way? I am drinking a really nice 2018 Aloro Vineyard Pinot Noir. So Aloro's just here in Sherwood. Great little winery if you haven't been there.
So I'm not really going local with mine. I'm keeping with the theme of the first 5 to 6 minutes of our podcast and going with a Greek drink here. So I imported with me some ouzo, the national drink of Greece. It's a black licorice flavored liquor, and I mixed it with. Is it
strong, or is it like a liqueur, like a schnapps?
Oh, it's strong. Yeah, it's strong. You don't have to use much of it to get much of the flavor, but when you mix it with something, you don't really taste the alcohol, and it's just black licorice. So I mixed it with a little bit of orange juice, and it brings out that black licorice flavor and the citrusy, refreshing taste as well. So
awesome. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Okay, so should we talk some football?
Yep, let's dive right into it. So today's episode of the damn podcast, here we are 8 minutes into it, finally getting to the rundown, but we had to flex our vacations and everything on all our listeners. But we're going to start with some spring football talk. As Angie mentioned, she was here for about a week and a half while I was overseas watching practice. I got back into it yesterday as Oregon State began its final week of spring ball. We're going to talk some transfer portal news. We're going to talk baseball. Oregon State jumping up in the rankings once again. Men's basketball, there's a couple of noteworthy items there, even though the season's come to a close, and then another Olympic sport update at the end. So let's start right now with football. Angie, I wasn't here to see I guess kind of the meat of spring practice as they got back into action. So fill me in a little bit, fill the listeners in. What did you see over the last week or so?
Yeah, that first day back, that Thursday was kind of just them getting back, kind of acclimated. But so I was lucky because I actually had really nice weather for the Thursday practice that I covered. In fact, that Thursday practice was close to 80 by the end of the afternoon. So it was beautiful. My 8th grader asked to go to practice with me. It was like this amazing day. I took him with me. We walked around campus. It was amazing. So, but football wise, it was interesting. Those first 2 practices were completely 100% dominated by the defense. I liked what we saw from, Andrew Chatfield, Corey Stover. It's really nice to have John McCartan back in the mix. I think the Bees will be helped off on the edge with those guys.
I'm going to stop you right there. Okay. I like that you're talking about the pass rush, because that is an area that I think we've been concerned about this offseason. It's an area that we've been hoping to see guys step up. And the fact that you mentioned Andrew Chatfield in particular is something noteworthy as we kind of wrap up spring camp here. I think that's a name that Oregon State fans are really interested in seeing what he can bring to the table. So the fact that we're seeing more of him now
Yes.
is a really good sign. So
But
sorry to interrupt you, but
I'm going to give
I
you
feel
a
like
not
that
so
was
fast though, because I still feel that the Beavs are lacking pretty heavily in the defensive tackle category. So, with Isaac Hodgins is still out. Thomas Seo has been playing some D tackle, but the Beavs need to hit that portal and get a legit high 3-star, 4-star, 5-star D tackle to come in. I mean, it's not even a question anymore of, kind of trying to make do. That to me, watching all of this is going to be the difference between a really, really good season and an okay season. So defense won the first two days. In fact, it was after each of those first two practices, the offense was doing up downs because they couldn't move the ball. I did make a bold prediction in the lodge from the offense. So offense really flipped between, let me go back. That first Thursday back, Chance Nolan was not available. He was out sick. So that first day it was just Ben Gulbranson and Tristan Gebbia. And then when Chance came back last week, those two really, Gebbia and Nolan, switched between the 1 and 2 spot quite often. The star, I'm going to be super bold here because this is the name you guys have to just remember, because I see this kid, he's going to be a star, and it's Damian Martinez. And he was the one that would actually break through. I mean, they'd whistle it dead before he'd actually score, but that young man I have not seen a running back impress me this young since Chuck Quiz. So big shoes to fill, but pretty impressive so far.
I couldn't agree with you more on the Martinez talk. Everything that I had seen from him over the first 2 weeks of camp before they went into that break was, he was the most effective running back out there. And, to be fair, they weren't doing much in the running game. Half of practice wasn't even full pads. As you said, they'd blow the play dead after contact. So we couldn't really get a full image of what he might bring to the table, but he was the one guy who was taking the ball for 10 yards, whereas the others were, kind of getting stopped up at the line of scrimmage. So I really liked what I've seen from him so far. I know you're really high on him. I think he has the potential to be a Jamar Jefferson type, where he steps in as a true freshman and just kind of takes that job by storm. I could really see him emerging as Oregon State's featured back right out of the gate. I want to ask you too, because you highlighted the defense there, saying that they won the day multiple times. At this point in the offseason, we're still pretty early on in spring camp. Do you like to see the defense that far ahead of the offense, or is that concerning to you about where the offense is?
No, I mean, at this point, you want the defense winning because the offense hasn't installed everything yet. Defense knows what plays are coming. And, in the past, we haven't seen the defense winning many days in practice, whether that's spring camp or fall camp. So to see them really dominating this spring is big. Now, hopefully they carry that forward and win early in fall camp. And then by the midpoint of fall camp is when I want to see the offense start, really start moving the ball a little bit more. Quarterbacks, it's going to be, I like what Chance Nolan brings to the table in that he can move a little bit. Sometimes it feels a little willy-nilly with him. I like the leadership, though, that Tristan Gebbia brings. So it's going to be interesting. And we'll talk a little bit about JT Daniels next. The Beavs missed that pick. But, they have what they have. I did talk to a couple players recently who really didn't seem to think that the Beavs needed Jaden Daniels, that they needed a D tackle. So they both felt really confident in what Gebbia or Nolan could bring. So I really think the team is in a good spot. Like I said, D tackle to me is the biggest. I think the first team offensive line is really good. I don't think they're going to miss much of a beat. Receivers has been kind of a mixed bag. I mean, we've seen Tyjon, we've seen Trayshawn, Gould. I mean, a huge rotation of who's running with the first team. So, and I have to say, because I'm so glad you're back, Carter, and I apologize to all the blitzers with my Lodge notebooks. It is super, super hard when you're trying to write down the first team offense and defense. You're trying to write down all the numbers and then try to watch the play and what transpires. And then the defense rotates and subs out 2 guys and the offense subs out guys. So Carter, let's just say the Lodge is happy you're back.
Hey, it's difficult to get all of that information down to when they're limited to one field and you're stuffed in the corner of the Truex Indoor Center, which is what happened yesterday. So yesterday, Tuesday, being the first day of the final week of spring camp, I returned to the practice field for the first time in about 3.5 weeks, and Oregon welcomed me back with a snowy morning in Corvallis in the middle of April. It was about 40 degrees when I got there. It had transitioned to rain, and we were stuffed inside the Truex, watching practice on one single field. I don't think they like practicing indoors too, because it really limits what they're able to do. But yeah, it was a very limited practice, in that I wasn't able to see much, for one, because our viewing angles in there aren't nearly as good as what they are on the Pro Throw fields. And then also, as I mentioned, they just can't accomplish as much when they're all fighting for field space. So the Lodge notebook yesterday was a little bit thinner. I expect it to kind of return back to its old self as they hopefully get back outside tomorrow on Thursday for their final ramp up for the spring game. So speaking of the spring game, I want to preview it a little bit because I was able to get some information on the format.
Okay.
As you might see in the title of this episode, I put the quotation marks around game. As you and I have become accustomed to, Angie, under Jonathan Smith, the spring game isn't necessarily a game per se. It's just kind of an extension of spring camp. And that, from what I have been told, is what we should expect this Saturday at Reser Stadium. Don't expect a full scrimmage or anything. You're probably going to see some position group drills for the first half hour or so. You'll see a decent amount of scrimmage for sure. Probably some goal line work, maybe some red zone work. But you're not going to see a 4-quarter scrimmage like you do at most schools across the country.
Nick
so your thoughts, Angie, on that format?
I don't like it.
Does it? Yeah. Let me just hear what you think.
In my opinion, the spring game should be a culmination of spring camp. It should be a celebration for the team and the players. Let them go 1s versus 1s, 2s versus 2s, or 1s versus 2s. I don't care. But let them actually have some fun with it. And then also use it to hype up for the fan base. The spring game has gotten to be so dull and boring that it doesn't get people hyped up. Nobody really if you're coming from Portland, do you really want to go down and watch them practice? No, not really.
To be fair, they do close practices now to the public, whereas, before, under Mike Riley and even a little bit into Gary Anderson, some fans were able to come in and watch a few practices here and there. So I do think there is something to be said for, this is the one practice you get to watch all year. Get to Reser, come watch us do our thing. But I also do want to note, they are doing their best to turn this into an event as far as, it is limited. It's just practice. It's not a game. But they are having, a get together, I believe, in the club level with Jonathan Smith and I think Scott Bahns, correct me if I'm wrong there, before the game.
Right, yeah.
And then during the game, obviously you get a chance to kind of take in a little bit of the construction that's going on at Reser. Mm-hmm. So I drove by there yesterday on my way to the indoor center. The video board is completely scrapped. It's just kind of the frame right now as they work to rebuild that and implement some state-of-the-art technology there. I'm super excited to see what that looks like, because that'll be good to go for this upcoming 2022 season. As far as the west side of Reser goes, still a lot of dirt, but they have poured a decent amount of concrete. So I think if you come in to Reser this weekend and you watch the spring game, you're going to be pretty excited to see the progress they've made there, because it definitely looks a lot different than it did just a few short months ago after the implosion.
Yeah, there's actually footings going, concrete, and that scoreboard, they were just taking that down last week when I was down there. So fun to see that. But yeah, I guess I'm just old school and let him go play. I get it. I get the worry about injury, but I mean, injuries happen in regular drill work too. I mean, gosh, Coach Smith said last Thursday that Rajon hurt his wrist just in drill. So yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah, Rajon Wright out for the remainder of spring camp with a wrist injury. He was wearing a soft cast yesterday at practice. So do not expect to see him on Saturday if you come down to Reser to watch that. But definitely, I do want to promote that a little bit because I want to see a good turnout from Beaver Nation. This is your one opportunity to see the team on the practice field, and it's a good chance to see some of the progress that they've made on the Reser project. For those of you who aren't in Corvallis often, take it in because
and then there's baseball too. You can stick around and watch Beavs in Long Beach State.
Exactly. We'll get to baseball in just a minute here, but I do want to touch on one more football topic. Angie, this news broke this morning. It's not good. It's not good news. It's not what Oregon State fans wanted to hear. It's honestly not, I think, what you and I had even expected. JT Daniels commits to West Virginia. So Oregon State loses the JT Daniels sweepstakes. The number one quarterback transfer in the country right now is staying out east. He's going to stay I guess he's in Big 12 territory now. It's West Virginia's in the Big 12. But why do you think Oregon State missed out on this, and how much of a factor did Oregon State's inability to put together an NIL package play in his commitment to the Mountaineers?
Yeah, he visited Oregon State first, and it went, by all accounts, everything I had heard, it went well. He even stayed an extra day, went to a couple of practices, sat down with the coaching staff to really kind of I do think he would have fit really well with the Beavers offense. I did worry about West Virginia simply because Graham Harrell is the offensive coordinator from USC that recruited him to SC. They have a long past, a long history. And I did hear after his Missouri visit, that didn't go as well. So I had a little more hope that Oregon State might come out, like you called it, the sweepstakes. And then he goes to West Virginia this weekend and pulls the trigger like almost immediately. So I do think NIL could be a factor there. Oregon State is putting together, or Oregon State boosters are putting together a collective. It's just, it seems like everything Oregon State does is kind of like a day late, a dollar short, or they're just really slow to adapt to things. I don't really know what West Virginia has, but obviously, he might, JT might say that NIL isn't a big deal to him, but if you check out his Instagram, and he was spokesman for all kinds of stuff down in Georgia.
He had a big deal with Zaxby's. It's obviously a huge fast food chain in the South. So I do think that without a doubt played a role in his decision. We'll see in the coming months, who he's on billboards for and who he's doing commercials for.
They also have a young quarterback room. So that probably come into play a little bit. But I think as a Oregon State fan, I saw someone post this, but this is what I thought initially was Oregon State kind of just is this perpetual bridesmaid. They're always kind of runner up to things. And again, I think part of that's just the slow adaptation to changes. I think part of that is maybe the lack of a really dynamic closer on the coaching staff. This group is being is shaped in the likeness of Coach Smith. Very workmanlike, very just matter of fact, I guess, but there's not a lot of excitement. I should say outside excitement. You talk to players, you talk to coaches, they're excited about the season. They're excited about what they can do, but it's more that quiet lunch pail, go to work, put your head down kind of mentality, not rah cheerlead. And sometimes you need a little bit of that toot in the horn and, excitement.
Not much pomp and circumstance going on inside the Valley Football Center, but I question how much that played a role in Daniel's decision because this is the kind of guy who just wants to get down to work. I think that's why Oregon State was so appealing to him from the get-go. He probably saw a place where he could come in right away, easily be the favorite to win the quarterback job, have an offense that set him up for success and have a no nonsense head coach who just wants to win games and, isn't worried about what outsiders think. And, I mean,
so Carter,
we talk about NIL, but I don't think Jonathan Smith is out here, pushing NIL deals.
Let me ask you this though. Do you think, so we've talked about in the lodge that picking up a guy in the portal, the stature of JT Daniels, how that could have propelled Oregon State's recruiting, especially potentially in the portal. Do you think not landing him hurts the Beavs?
I mean, yeah, I think anytime you can bring in a quarterback of that stature, it's automatically going to attract some of the players that are immediately affected by having a talented quarterback on your roster. You're going to see skill position guys come in with big offer sheets. If you've got JT Daniels here, your receiver room is probably going to see an uptick in talent. Your running backs, even, they want a guy who can take the pressure off of them a little bit. Offensive linemen, they want to protect a guy of that caliber too. So I think, it just being able to land him would have gotten the ball rolling, I think, to for Oregon State to take that next step in recruiting, because under Jonathan Smith, we've seen an improvement there. Year over year, there has been a steady upwards trajectory as far as recruiting goes. But they're always just so close to getting over the hump and bringing in somebody of this caliber. And I think the second they do, because it's going to happen, the second they do, it's going to do wonders for the potential of what this team can accomplish. But I want to go back to a point you made. This is something that's been on my mind all day, and honestly over the last couple of months, is the lack of a true closer on this recruiting staff. I think we saw it most glaringly with the Brayden Dorman recruitment. So for those unfamiliar, I'm sure most are at this point, but Brayden Dorman, 4-star quarterback out of Mesa, Colorado. Is that correct?
Yeah, Colorado. Colorado Springs, maybe.
Somewhere in Colorado.
Yeah.
For the this is a guy
2023.
Yes. This is a guy who Oregon State was high on from the very second, they discovered him. They pushed hard. He was very much into the whole Oregon State thing.
Wearing his hat on. Yeah.
Yeah, you go on his social media, everything's orange and black. He takes one visit to Arizona very, very late in his recruitment. And all of a sudden, it flips. He's a wildcat. That concerned me when it happened, because that's a position that Oregon State should be locking down. Quarterback should not be a concern. When you have Brian Lindgren and Jonathan Smith on your recruiting staff, you shouldn't be losing quarterbacks to other Pac-12 schools, in my opinion. So
especially Arizona.
100%. Yeah. A team that won one game last year. So I think we've seen that kind of rear its head a couple of times recently. And the fact that it repeated itself today with JT Daniels committing to West Virginia, I want to say kind of perpetuates what I have seen become an issue. Would you kind of agree with that?
I seriously was just going to ask you that before you started, because there's my concern a little bit, because it shouldn't be an issue when you have your head coach as a former quarterback and an offensive, guru, and then you have Brian Lindgren, who by all accounts is a top-notch offensive coordinator, and you can't land your top quarterbacks. And this isn't a one-time deal. This has happened a couple times now. JT Daniels, Brayden Dorman, and then into years past where the Beavs haven't, landed their number one guy or have been came in second. So I think that is a super big concern. And it's something I think if I'm Coach Smith and I'm Coach Lindgren, I'm looking in the mirror and thinking, how can I do this differently? Because I shouldn't be losing players to Arizona or even West Virginia, to be completely honest.
I'm right there with you. And, it's funny because we say this all the time, but I think our concerns about this would be, I think we would feel a lot better about Oregon State's situation if they could go out and bring in a defensive tackle.
Yeah. So that's the other area. Like I want to see Leggy go out and get a D tackle. So
100%.
I mean, I liken this to, like, let's say Trent Bray is your head coach, and what if he was striking out with every linebacker he recruited, and had, it would start to make you say, what's going on? Like I said, this is like quarterback number 3, maybe 4. I'm starting to kind of wonder here what's going on.
Yeah. But I mean, again, one defensive tackle comes in and we're not talking about JT Daniels
Everybody's
in
super
September.
jazzed.
I'll tell you that much.
Yes, yes.
All right, we're going to hit a quick ad break here before we get to baseball and basketball. I want to promote BeaverBlitz.com, which powers the Damn Podcast. Damn Podcast is under the Beaver Blitz umbrella. We are under the 24/7 Sports umbrella. So a subscription to Beaver Blitz gets you access to all of our coverage of Oregon State football, men's basketball, baseball, and pretty much everything else that goes on within the athletic department. You get access to Angie's expertise, my practice reports, JP's weekly walk-off in baseball season, and all sorts of other great subscriber exclusive content.
Plus, you get access to the entire 24/7 network,
which is a great value in itself.
Yeah.
A full subscription to 24/7 Sports also gets you Paramount Plus access included in your subscription, which is worth the money by itself. The Beaver Blitz merchandise store is also still up and running. If you're watching us live on YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and drop that link for you in the chat. If you're interested in any of our 20th anniversary gear.
I have been wearing my sweatshirt like all the time. I love it. It's cozy. They weren't even that expensive. Honestly, we're not making any money on them. The merch is just the cost that Spread Shop charges, and they'll ship it right to your house. You order what you want. I do think I might need to order that 20, the big 20, I think is what I named it.
I've got like so much Beaver Blitz gear in my closet right now that I feel like I'm stocked for the full.
And the mug, like I got my dad, he's been looking for a coffee mug, like a travel mug that would fit in his cup holder. So we have the Beaver Blitz one ready to go. So I ordered it for my dad. He loves it.
Yeah. If you need that link to the Beaver Blitz merch store, if you're watching us live, it's in the chat. It's in the lodge at beaverblitz.com. So be sure to check that out and rep us at the next Oregon State baseball game or at the spring game this weekend. All right, let's dive into baseball now. Oregon State coming off of a huge series win in Los Angeles, getting their first sweep of USC at Dato Field ever. A little hard to believe, considering Oregon State's success on the diamond the last 2 decades now. But USC's been a tough competitor in this conference for a long time. Obviously, a very historically successful program, and to go down there and sweep them on their home field for the first time ever is pretty impressive. Yeah. Obviously, if you're doing something that hasn't been done before, you're doing something right. So that sweep pushes Oregon State up to number 3 in the D1 baseball rankings. That's the most widely kind of used ranking source. That's what I've been using for the last few weeks here at Beaver Blitz. But they move up to number 2 in the NCBWA and coaches polls. So you're looking at a top 2 team here entering the weekend.
Top 2 or 3 already. I mean, just early in the season. So
not too shabby.
So we're taping this on Wednesday. Just a quick reminder, and I hope JP is watching because I know this could cause stress for JP. It is a Thursday series start this week with Easter because they do not play on Sunday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday series this week with Long Beach State. They're the Dirtbags, right?
The Dirtbags are coming to town. So Long Beach State enters the weekend at 15-16 overall. They were an even 500 before a midweek game yesterday, and honestly, it's odd to go and look at their schedule and see a losing record because Long Beach State is one of those teams that, I feel like in college baseball, a lot of the Western powers come from the smaller conferences. So Gonzaga right now, a top 20 team, all of those big West teams like a UC Irvine, a Cal State Fullerton, and of course Long Beach State, which we're talking about right now. These are teams that are consistently in the mix come regional time. Every now and then one of them will break into the College World Series. And Long Beach State, a bit of a down year, and I think a big opportunity for Oregon State to continue to build momentum here in the middle of the conference season. I really like that they get their non-conference, break from Pac-12 play right in the middle. A good opportunity to regroup, maybe figure some things out. And of course, as we learned yesterday,
big news,
getting another starting pitcher into the rotation. So Jake Pfennigs, right-handed pitcher out of Post Falls, Idaho, the number 2 starter entering the season, missed the last, what is it now? Almost 2 months with the back injury. He is coming back. He will start the series opener tomorrow on Thursday. We expect him to throw 30 to 35 pitches based off of the indications that pitching coach Rich Dorman gave play-by-play man Mike Parker the other day. So, Angie, I don't know if you were able to see Fenigs starts down in Surprise. I was there and saw the first one. He looked impressive. He still hasn't given up a run through 7 innings of work, about a strikeout per inning. And I think getting him back really unlocks a lot of potential for the pitching staff.
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, they actually looked a little better this past weekend down in LA, but to get him back, even if it's just throwing 30, 35, you get him up maybe to 40, 50 the next week, get him feeling pretty confident by postseason. And that's really big for Oregon State.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is obviously, getting your second best starter back in the mix is huge in itself. But I think what that does for the rest of the staff might be even more important. One of the complaints with this year's team, I think that, we've heard from fans and we've seen firsthand is the inability for them to kind of shut teams down when they get past the starter. The bullpen has been shaky this year. There's no other way to say it. Team ERA is a little bit higher than what we've become accustomed to. The strikeouts are down just a touch from last year, I believe. I think what you get with Jake Pfennigs back in the rotation is, you don't have to go to a bullpen day on Sunday. You have a solid starting 3 right now, and that saves a lot of arms. And if you can get him deep into games in the next, month or so, that saves your arms even more. So I think what that unlocks as far as your 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th innings is huge. And quite frankly, if you're going to have any level of postseason success, you need pitching depth. So to get one of the 2 starters back is absolutely massive, and to do so still fairly early in the year, I think is something that could really go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, they just have to work him back slow, and then hopefully that back tightness doesn't rear its ugly head again. But you have to have faith in the training staff. They're going to be working him and keeping him iced and massaged and everything else, and getting him back as quickly as possible.
The rest of the squad, Angie, you mentioned you were able to watch a couple of the games this past weekend down at Dado Field. Were they televised on Pac-12 Network?
No,
or was that a live stream situation?
It was a stream.
Okay. That's a conversation that I think we need to have on this podcast. Once we get into the part of the season where it's just baseball, we don't have any football. We need to talk Pac-12 Network and just how they have completely dropped the ball in baseball coverage. There is no reason that you should have to watch the number 2 team in the country on a school-produced stream. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into that next month or something. But what did you see in those 3 games against USC? Because I was overseas and couldn't stream it even if I wanted to. I check the scores and see, Oregon State sweeping USC, and I think, okay, this team's starting to put things together a little bit. Is that kind of what you saw?
Yeah, I felt that there was a little more fight. In the past, they might take a lead and then maybe let off the gas a little bit, but we saw them kind of battle the entire game, entire series. The bats were a little stronger. And so much of baseball, is pitching. It's getting, and then it's also opportune hits. And just the timing of those. So they kind of put it together, and I'm anxious to see if they can do that now against a Long Beach State team, which they should sweep, by all intents and purposes. Will they have that killer mentality, or will they maybe let off the gas a little bit? So I think this weekend is a big test for them to stay focused on the here and now.
100%. I think, these non-conference games, there's always a non-conference series that's mixed in with the rest of the Pac-12 play. It feels like an extension of a midweek series a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to see these guys locked in against a team that really has no bearing on kind of the part of the season that you're focused on, if that makes any sense. You want to see them come out locked in and don't let Long Beach State take advantage of any mental lapses or anything. That is pretty much all we have to talk about on the baseball side right now. Obviously, the big story there is Jake Pfennigs coming back. Again, throwing 30 to 35 pitches in the series opener. But a couple of other really noteworthy things that have transpired over the last week or two coming on the hardwood. So the men's basketball team obviously has been done playing for about a month now. Just wrapped up the worst season in school history. Kansas just won the national championship, so we're done with basketball now. But that doesn't stop the news cycle. So what day is today? Wednesday. I believe it was Monday that Eric Reveneau was announced as the new associate head coach. He replaces Kerry Rupp as the associate head coach, and then Oregon State will have one more assistant job to fill. Eric Reveneau, I don't know if you have his bio pulled up here, but I'll give you a chance to do so if you want. He's got some West Coast ties, which I think is big for recruiting. You want to keep as much West Coast talent out here as possible. I think that's something that Oregon State has dropped the ball on a lot in basketball. Seeing guys like Ben Gregg, Nate Biddle commit to other Pacific Northwest teams. Ben Gregg in particular is someone that Oregon State really thought that they kind of had in their crosshairs. Yeah. And, he eventually goes to Gonzaga. So if you've got this pulled up, I do. So, I want you to give me a little rundown on Eric Reveneau, because he brings a lot to the table. I think I've heard a lot of good things about him.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, my initial reaction was, I feel bad saying this, because I love Wayne Tinkle. I think he's a great guy, but I had a Oregon State booster reach out to me, a Blitz member, and he just said, "What's your reaction?" And I said, honestly, I'm just numb with basketball. It's like, show me. I don't care. You could have hired Michael Jordan, I might've been really excited about, but I want to see it. I want to see something transpire, right? You can be the best guy in the world, but let's see some wins. So he played at Stanford, 85 to 89. He was an assistant coach with the Cardinal, for about 10 years. Then he went on to the University of Portland as a head coach for 10 years before moving to Georgia Tech as an assistant, and then the assistant head coach, working with the bigs. And so where I said I was numb when they first hired him, and I just kind of was like, we'll see what he does. The more and more I've heard from people that, have connections to Georgia Tech was upset to see him go. He's done a lot with the big men there. By all accounts, is a good recruiter and a good coach. So, proof will be in the pudding, but I think it's a change that had to be made. But by all accounts, this guy should be, top notch. So we'll see. Like I said, it's just hard for me to get too excited. Like I said, Michael Jordan might have got me excited.
You think that one moves the needle a little bit for you?
Michael Jordan would totally move the needle for me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, I've heard nothing but good things on Coach Reveneau over the last couple of days as this has kind of, transpired, as the fallout from the hire has, hit the Twitter sphere and whatnot. Everyone that's familiar with what he's done at Stanford and I believe at University of Portland has nothing but good things to say. So
he also coached, just one quick thing too. He, the summer of 2021, he served as an assistant coach for the Czech Republic's U18 team for European Challenger events. So, so he'll have some Euro ties as well, which Oregon State isn't afraid to go after.
Yeah. And that takes us back to the Craig Robinson days too, with, basing a lot of your starting lineup on international talent. I know
the soccer team, team's doing that. So
I know the wins weren't always there under the Craig Robinson era, but they had some pretty fun players to watch that came from overseas. I think of the Shaftenar brothers. Who else? Devon Collier, wasn't he? I want to say he was Canadian or something. I don't know. There's a long list. Shea Njai is one. There's a long list of guys who came from overseas and put together, solid 4-year careers at Oregon State. So those international ties are, they're nothing to scoff at. The other news that came from the Oregon State men's basketball program, not necessarily great news. Two key players entering the transfer portal. So Jared Lucas and Deshaun Davis, both, I believe, since the last time we recorded this podcast, have entered the portal. I know Davis at least was about 2 weeks ago. Lucas was like just before him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Those are two guys, that if you're Wayne Tinkle, you're hoping you're building your lineup around next year, but you lose your starting point guard and your starting shooting guard, the best shooter on your roster, the reigning assist leader in the Pac-12. Where do you go if you're Wayne Tinkle right now to replace what should have been the focal point?
So your leaders. Team? So let me ask you this, Carter, because you were around this team all season long. You saw and I was a big Jared Lucas fan, but body language and some things I've heard, potentially he had checked out a little before. There was some coaching, some riffs with the coaches. Do you think both these and Deshaun Davis, he had a couple little run-ins too with players. Do you think this helps the locker room culture? Or do you think, like I said, it's always tough when you're going to lose your leading scorer and a guy that should be a fourth-year starter?
Yeah, it's tough to say. It's tough to say if it's an addition by subtraction thing because, by all accounts, these are the two best players on that team as far as skill goes. So, I mean, you'd have to make up a lot in terms of team chemistry to replace their production. Whether they were the two problems on last year's team, I don't know. What I do know is that both of them have had their issues as far as chemistry goes. Jared Lucas, mostly with, what you mentioned with disagreements with the coaching staff. I mean, that's not even insider information. That's something that we've seen with our own eyes during the middle of games. I go back to that all access game on Fox about 2 years ago when Jared Lucas is seen rolling his eyes in the locker room.
Yeah.
I don't want to bash on these guys too much, but I have heard that, they were two of the guys who, might have seen a few issues stem from their behavior. So what that does for the locker room, I don't know. I mean, like I said, again, you need to bring in some really talented players to replace what you're losing from them. I don't care how much you make up for it in added chemistry by losing them. It's difficult to replace a 3-point shooter of Lucas's caliber and a guy who can, move the rock as well as Davis does.
I'm just going to throw it out there. I think we need Ted Lasso as our coach. I just got done watching that whole series and it's so good.
I haven't gotten to it yet, but everything I've heard is
maybe Roy Kent can come be our coach. That would be awesome. Soccer, it'll chance. Yeah.
We'll have to see where Oregon State goes with its final opening on the men's basketball staff. If you had maybe a wish list, I mean, we don't have a short list yet at BeaverBlitz or anything, but if you had a wish list of, maybe some of the traits you're looking for in another assistant, is there something you want to see Wayne Tinkle target?
I think a solid coach, an X's and O's in-game guy. I think I would love to see Oregon State. I think that's maybe a area that Oregon State has not done a good job with is in-game adjustments. So someone that can really kind of dial in what's going on in game, make some changes in game. And I think someone that can help with chemistry. I think that was so, and part of that's play. I mean, it's not all in the coaches. I heard too many times that Oregon State was really missing Stevie Thompson and Zach Reichel, that those two guys were kind of the glue and were the team leaders that would kind of get guys right. So maybe a younger guy with a lot of energy that can hit the road recruiting and relate to some of these guys.
Sounds like you want to clone Marlon Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a bright future from what I've seen from him. So,
I mean, there's a reason he was the only assistant that survived the purge, so to speak.
I do. I think you have a lot of experience now with Wayne and Coach Reveno. So, and then you have some youth and some energy with Marlon Stewart. So maybe kind of a combo of the two.
It's a good mix because I think, what you get from Stewart is as you mentioned, kind of the energy guy, the recruiter, someone who can relate to these players on a personal level as, a really young guy who's still kind of up and coming and earning every bit of it, so to speak. And then
We
you've
could
got
get Chris Webber. Chris Webber would be good. Maybe, hey, Lillard. He's out right now with an injury. Let him come coach a little bit.
do a little part-time assistant job.
Little side hustle. He might even help us with some recruiting with football. You never know.
Yeah. We will see where Wayne Tinkle takes it over the next, I don't know, couple of weeks, maybe the next month or so. I mean, I would imagine he's probably going to want to get this thing locked up quickly before they go into their off-season workouts.
Yeah.
So
and summer, all the tournaments for recruiting.
Yeah, we will keep you posted the soonest we hear anything on the men's basketball front. That covers the news there. One last thing that I feel like we really need to touch on is maybe the most notable, actually. Jade Carey on Thursday will be beginning her quest for a national title. So she is participating in the all-around at nationals. She marks... Oh man, I think I saw this was the 15th time in the last 16 years Oregon State was represented at nationals. So clearly a pretty good track record there on the gymnastics team, but I couldn't think of anyone more capable of coming away with a title than Jade Carey.
Yeah, I mean, how amazing. And the hardest thing to win because you're competing in all of the events. So she's been amazing watching her all season. I know she did announce that she would be kind of stepping away still with Oregon State, but would be focusing again on the international front after the national NC2A championships, working more. I don't know if it's back with the Olympic team or what her plan is, but she's been a pleasure to watch. And I know the chaplains, Tanya, is excited to get her back then in the gym whenever she can.
Yeah, obviously you can't blame Carey for moving on and doing whatever she can at the international level.
The beautiful thing about it is that she's still practicing her trade, so it's not like she's sitting out. And I mean, she's practicing at the highest level, and then she can come back and compete at Oregon State when
100%.
she's So I think it's not like she's just taking a leave of absence to.
And frankly, if we never see her at Oregon State again, if some huge thing on the international scale comes up for her, what she has given this program, this university, and quite frankly, the community, I think everybody in the state of Oregon has really appreciated what she's done, what she has given.
And she's a Beaver through and through.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
she already just.
I mean, she committed well before the Olympics and everything, and stuck with it. She's been nothing short of impressive in every way, and I think Oregon State is better for it. So, best of luck to Jade. You can follow her on ESPN2 tomorrow on Thursday. I'm not fully familiar with how.
Yeah, I don't know how that. Yeah, because Oregon State team didn't qualify.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have a schedule to give you or anything, but I know you can go on the Oregon State gymnastics site and they've got the information for you there. But it is on ESPN2, so nationally televised. It's not on Pac-12 Network, so everyone can watch it. It's not on an Oregon State live stream, so at least you can watch Jade Carey, from the comfort of your own couch. But
okay, Carter, you got to get this on the agenda for one of our future talking points.
Should we bring in?
Sense.
Yeah,
I can sense
the disdain.
The disdain.
Should we bring on? Man, I don't know. We could try to bring in some sort of Pac-12 employee and pick their brain a little bit on the network. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like they don't really want the publicity though.
Yeah, because it's bad.
Nobody ever has anything good to say about the Pac-12 network. So I don't know. We'd really have to sell that one if we were trying to get a guest from the conference office.
True.
I don't know. Well, that wraps things up for us here on this week's episode of the Damn Podcast. We want to thank everyone for joining us live on YouTube and for sharing your comments. I know we didn't get around to sharing any of them on the air, but we've been reading them, and it's a good place for discussion as we talk here. So be sure to join us next week as we return to our live format once again. We're going to get back into the swing of things now that we're back here in the States. We'll have to take another leave of absence at the end of the month as Angie leaves. But we're good to go next week, aren't we?
Next week is good. The next week I'll be at the Eiffel Tower.
There we go. Wine. So while Angie's overseas, I might look into bringing some guests on we can do some fun things here as spring football wraps up and as we get a little bit more flexibility in our schedules here. But yeah, that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for joining us again. You can follow her on Twitter at Angie Machado 1. You can follow me at Carter Bahns. And of course, stick with BeaverBlitz for all the latest as we wrap up spring camp and as baseball enters the final month of the regular season. For Angie, I'm Carter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Damn Podcast. We're good.